Well, here it is, Wednesday, October the 30th, 2024. The countdown to elect our next president of this nation. But it also is involved in a lot of senators and congressmen and a lot of different state representatives out there that we're looking at that are going to go to the federal government. And we're a nation that is pretty well divided. But the bad part of it is it's not the division as much as it is the hate that we seem to have for each other. If you're a Republican or a Democrat, you're declaring that yours is the only the only one that should be running. You know, back when I was barely 17, I went in the service. And I went in there a kid and I come out something that was remade by the military service. By the time I got out, I was a young man with different thoughts than what I had when I went in. I was no longer that snot-nosed kid. And the one thing I realized while I was in there was the purpose for that uniform was to protect our country, for the freedoms that our Constitution guaranteed. And to say that I'm disappointed at this age is understating it completely. I'm disgusted. There are so many people out there that have never had the privilege of wearing a uniform that would tell me who I should vote for and how I should vote. And then if I don't, what a despicable person I may be. And it works two ways. There's a lot of people out there believe the other way too. Like I say, it doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. Everybody's mad at each other, and they're looking for a reason to tell you what a bad person you are because of how you believe. And some of that is even in religion, whatever a person believes in. You know, there's a lot of things that you almost have to hold as personal. But my beliefs, that I shouldn't be able to express them without getting all the hate, that's bullshit. You know, when I was a young man and went in the service, my dad had warned me, he said, this country is going to get changed a lot. He said, Big Brother is going to take over government, and you'll have no privacy anymore. He told me that before I went in the military. Matter of fact, he told me that when I was about 14, 15 years old. And it never dawned on me, you know, how things would change. We lived in a neighborhood where a lot of people were happy with each other. I guess I was lucky. We didn't fight over politics, and we didn't call each other names, although they say you should never discuss politics and religion because it ends up in an argument or a fight. But it doesn't have to. But if you believe one way or the other about somebody that votes for either party, that they're your enemy and they're the worst person in the world, then you have a problem with yourself. Not with that person that you're mad at, but with yourself. You see, the vets of this nation, when you're in the military, you really don't express your views on politics because as a soldier, you have to be neutral. Whoever is president is the commander-in-chief, and you answer to him. And so that becomes ingrained in you, and when you get out, it's a long time before you would say something negative about a president. You know, I was upset when I was in the service with the president, but I didn't vocalize it. And the only reason I was upset with him is because he had determined that the people overseas were going to have to spend an extra 6 months overseas. and some people had to be extended in the military without their permission. In other words, the original agreement you had with the military was changed. It was null and void, and a new agreement was there because of our commander-in-chief. But at the time, it was necessary. It had to happen. We needed the men in there. There was the Cuban crisis. In Germany, there was a wall over there that was built. Berlin was in a crisis because they would no longer let travel go between Berlin, which happened to be in the east side of Germany, and the west side of Germany. Even though Berlin had always been the capital of Germany, the people that lived there were for the entire country, not east and west. Along with that, we had the English and the French and the Americans on the western Germany. The eastern Germany was all Russian. Western Germany was pretty successful financially. People had more. It was an easier going life than it was on the east side. The east side was under a dictatorship, or actually a social type thing. It really, I guess, what you couldn't call a dictatorship because they do have elections. But there was a stark difference between the two sides. And the fence was to keep people in, not to keep people out. Although they used it in both directions. We weren't allowed to cross over there, but the high officials in the Russian government came across the border at their own will. I got to see firsthand how things could get out of hand in a country. Now, when I was over there, we treated the civilians just as we did civilians back here in the United States. There was a lot of respect between them and us. I'm sure there was some left over from World War II that hated us with a passion, but you didn't see it out in the street. And when you went to the guest house, which a guest house, by the way, is a place that they sell alcoholic beverages and food. And that's where we patronized. And I never once was told to get out because I was an American. I was treated very well, and I always treated the people in there with respect. And it was pretty much a mixed crowd. It wasn't just military or civilians. You would see, depending on where you went in town, you might see more civilians than you did military, or if you went to a place where the military more or less hung out because they had more things that were English or French or American, and it might be your favorite hangout. You might have more of the military, but there was always quite a few civilians as well. But I come back to the United States, and you could see that politically things were getting out of hand. And people I went to school with hated the fact that I was wearing a uniform. They really felt that I did something wrong, and I didn't. I felt that it was my duty. And now that I'm up in, I don't have a lot of years to enjoy myself. But that same initial hatred that I picked up on when I come back to the United States, it has compounded itself much worse. And I have people get after me that have no idea what it's like to step up and give several years to your country because of something you believe in. And that is the freedoms that our forefathers put down in writing. The reason our country was founded in the first place. And we have the freedom to vote for whoever we want. And yet, neighbor against neighbor, previous friends against friends, groups against groups, because of who you may want to put in office. There's pluses and negatives against everybody that runs for office. At this time, I think one of the biggest negatives are the amount of people that are in the Senate, Congress, and running for office that may be too old to hold that office. But we're the ones that created the path that they ran on. We, you and I. And because of some of the things that they say about each other's parties, this hate has grew and festered. And we no longer have parties. We have sides. You're on that side or this side, left side, right side. And there's no need for that. The Constitution didn't say we should do that. And yet, we all get out there and we throw rocks at each other. For you guys or you women that have never gave of yourself to this country, what makes you think you deserve to tell me how I should vote? Why do you judge me on one thing? My beliefs. My belief in my heart is the freedoms of this country as per written in our Constitution. I want the right to go down and buy my groceries at the store without a big list saying what I'm allowed to buy. I want the freedom to go from one state to the next, if I wish. If I wish to fly in and out of the country, I want that freedom. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I spent all that time in the military. And yet, if I get on here and I start talking, it wouldn't matter which party it was, by the way, I would be so filled with hate in the comments below, or the threat, it'd be a bye-bye. I thought you weren't like that. They don't want me to have an opinion. What gives that person the audacity to tell me how I can vote? In most instances, there is nothing they gave that gives them that right. Now, some will tell you, well, my father fought. I wish you'd think about that a little bit. What'd they fight for? The freedom so that we could speak our piece, that we could assemble in peace. Do you understand that we are the United States? You and I, when this election is over, we have to live next door to each other, in the same block, in the same city or state, in the same country, this country that gave us everything that we have under God. Yes, we have freedom of religion here. They don't take a piece of your check to feed a church here. They don't do that. Nor do they go down there and say you can't have that church. No, they don't do that either. The ballot box out there is so that you can have privacy if you wish in the way you vote. That's what that's for. Nobody can get up there on voting day and stand in front of you and say you can't come in unless you vote Democrat or Republican. Nobody can do that. If they do, they're going to go to jail. And they're going to spend some time in jail, believe me. And yet, I can come on this venue and you will hate me for even expressing something that is even minutely against what you believe. That is wrong. Absolutely wrong. Because I don't do that to you, and you wish to do it to me. Why? I'm the one that wore the uniform. More than likely, maybe your husband or your father, maybe one of your mother or grandmother fought. And, the list goes on and on. I guess I'll never get over it. I mean, if people haven't learned in all the years of what this freedom cost us and why we have it, They never will understand it. They're so damn bullheaded that it's their way or no way. Your life must suck that you think that your way is the only way to operate. But I'm telling you that both parties are welcome to sit down to my table and have supper. And we do have freedom of expression without throwing a plate of food at them. The minute you get mad and you get upset and you leave the table, well, that's your problem. It's not the problem of the people that are sitting down at that table enjoying a good meal. No. It's yours. And if you wish to get up and leave, have at it. Goodbye. But if you sit at my table, you better be open-minded. Now, I know what it takes to get our country on a good track. You can't just spend money without having reserves behind it. You can't do that. And we're finding that out through inflation. You think about it in the last few years, what it's cost us to live here. The expenses when you go to the grocery store. It's up to us to vote and try to keep this thing in hand, or at least make sure whoever is going to represent us understands how we feel about it. None of us are fools. We all probably have the same goals or similar goals. But we have to look at the way the people have operated before they got there, before we put our trust in them. You know, years ago, and I don't trust in too many social programs, but excuse me, I wanted to see insurance for everybody. And I like the programs if we had some sort of a system insurance-wise that would give us a look into the problems within our country. In other words, shared sicknesses, information, not necessarily by name, but maybe by a number, so that the science can look at it and tell us where possibly the flu is going to be the worst, what cures are working the best, what pharmaceuticals are doing the best thing for us, and see it so that we have this opportunity to partake in the things that will make us healthier and maybe live a little longer. And we had an opportunity for two parties to sit down and do that, and then they turned on each other. They turned on each other. And we ended up with a program that didn't work out as well. Although, the one thing it did accomplish, no matter what your illness or disabilities are, you can have insurance in this country now. But you have to have the money to pay for it. Excuse me, sometimes I have a little trouble with my throat. Actually, that was one of the biggest disappointments I've ever had, because I've always felt that we need a way to make it better for the people that live here. It's such a big country with so much going for it. But the things that I don't like are when people tell us obvious lies they're looking for our vote. That upsets me. And when I catch them in it, I think about it when I go to vote, of who is really going to do what they say they're going to do. Now, the present administration, before they got in there, they said exactly what they were going to do. And that's what they did. Unfortunately, those things didn't work very well. And our nation is going downhill very fast. Now, Can it be fixed? I don't know. I'm going to do whatever I can at the ballot box this year. And I'll probably have to vote for some people that I don't particularly respect, but because of the background of what they've done in the past, may dictate what the vote will have to be so that this country can survive another 4 years. And the heck of it is, I've always been one of those that likes to plan way down the line, and I can't. Because what you and I do is so unpredictable, and we're guided by feelings instead of good sense a lot of times. The feelings where somebody, they point the finger at me because of what they think I might be. And yet, unless you're one of my close friends or maybe one of my neighbors, you really don't know me. You only know what you see out here on the boob tube here. Sometimes you have to swallow your pride and do things that may not be necessarily in your very own best interest, but in the interest of the country, so that it has a little more going for it. When I was in the service, I didn't have to worry about such things because I was told when to get up, when to eat, when I was allowed to go to the John. I was told to do things that I may not want to do, but I didn't have a choice because I signed that little contract that said I belong to the United States Army. You make there was no doubt in my mind what I was going to have to do for the next 3 years when I signed that little contract and took that oath. I want to tell you something. Before I took that oath, I was treated with kid gloves and like it was the greatest thing in the world. And if I told you all the language that was used on it, us guys, after we took the oath to get us in that bus and head us out for basic training, they sure warmed our ears up. We got a whole new outlook at it. And for the next few months, they beat it into us until we were soldiers. That's what they did. It's almost like a look at the future of what would happen with a dictator. That's how bad it was. But when you got on the other side of it, the respect came because of the hard work that you did and the things that you were asked to accomplish. And you were given a job. And whatever rank you had to earn it. It wasn't just given to you because of time in the service. You had to earn it. And you had to earn the respect from your fellow soldiers. It doesn't always come easy. Here in civilian life, sometimes I look at it and I think, I don't know how good it would do to hit everybody with that same thing. Most of you couldn't do it. You couldn't muster up what you would have to do to comply with following orders and then finding out some of the things you don't like that you're going to have to do anyway because somebody told you. You see, people like myself that wore a uniform, we put our time in there so that you have those choices. You don't have to go under a regime like that. We were taught how to defend this great nation of ours, and it is a great nation, and it still is, but we're slowly giving it away. You see it every day on TV. You see the slanted views given to you depending on which station you listen to. Some of our closest allies no longer trust us. And there's good reason why they don't. A lot of wars are started by dictators and politicians. And the unfortunate thing is that the civilians are the ones that end up fighting it, ones that give their blood up. And when they come home, they're treated like second-class citizens. especially if they're injured or if they fell on bad times, end up on the street. Where's the help for them that made this nation so great? I really wondered that when I got out. But like I say, I love this nation. I love this country, what it stands for. What I don't like is when somebody comes up to me and tells me I have no right, I should not be voting the way I may believe. You are so wrong and such a hypocrite, because those are the things that I tried to preserve for you. It is important that we all vote, and if we do, and if we use our head, our country will move ahead. But we got to stop fighting with each other over such little BS stuff. You know, in the last few years, we got the cart before the horse. And what am I talking about? Way back, well, of course, I could bring that video up, but I predicted what was going to happen a little over 3.5 years ago. I had said that if we stop the oil and we start going backwards too quickly, we will fall on our face. And the reason is because our economy was based on fossil fuels and, quite frankly, cars, automobile industry. We don't have the steel industry anymore. We let that slide out of our hands to foreign countries. Most of the tech stuff comes from foreign countries. We invent the things and we give them away, in a manner of speaking. We let other people take them from us. The big factories, doesn't matter whether it's Electrolux, Amana's, Westinghouse, they're in foreign countries. I want you to think about that a little bit. How do you level the board? If we don't manufacture products within our country, for our country, what chances do you think we have in the future? You know, Rome bought an army because they could no longer man the army. Their products they bought from other nations because they no longer had the people that would take care of the making of goods or food or anything else. And slowly but surely, they broke themselves. They ran out of money, and it was too late for the people. And one of the greatest nations in the world fell. The Egyptian Empire. Think about that a little bit. Look back in history to see what's happened to us, and we're just a baby nation compared to most. And we're following those same paths. If you want something, you have to work for it. I was taught that at a very early age by my grandmother. For me, it's almost too late to work for something. If you don't have it by my age, you probably never will. Now, as it is, I'm happy with my station in life. And I really hope that you are too. And I hope you're using that brain that the good Lord gave you. And you have some common sense along with it. And I ask too, please don't get mad at me because of my beliefs or the way I may vote or who I believe in my religion. It is Christian, by the way. And I've made my peace with the good Lord at this point. I wish I could make peace with the people in my own country. I wish the things that I fought for, you would believe in the same way I do and let me have those freedoms I fought for. I'm disappointed in the way we feel about each other just because of how we believe. Right, left, Democrat, Republican, independent. People, don't you understand? You are U.S. citizens, Americans. We live in the Americas, the continent. Be happy and rejoice with what you've got. Don't tear everybody down around you that helps make it that way. I don't have much more to say about it. I just wish all of you believe like I do, and that is we all have those rights, and we should use them, and we should not be discriminated because we do. Discriminating somebody about the way they believe in politics is just as bad as being a racist against any other race. It doesn't matter what color or race you are. You're a human being. Treat each other that way. And it's the same way for elections. We should not be hating each other for the way we believe who's going to be our next president or who's going to be our next congressman or senator. We do need to use our head and vote smartly. Look at what they've done. And I don't know, I don't have any more advice. If I thought it would do any good, I would plead that you treat other people better. I don't know how to put it to you. If there's most liberal part about me, I guess, is I've always believed people could be helped. And that was instilled at me very early by my grandmother. And I know I give my grandmother a lot of credit, but she had it coming. For me, she was a saint. As old as I am, I still remember her just as if she was here yesterday. Well, with that, I'm going to let you go. I pled my case. Go ahead and judge me for whatever you want. It won't change my mind how I feel about other people. I feel everybody has that chance, and I hope they take it. I'm not telling you how to vote, but I get upset with you when you tell me how. It's not in your wheelhouse to tell me. I put my time in. Maybe you better put your time in. With that, I thank you and I pray for you. Hope the good Lord opens your heart up, and if there's a problem out there within your family or health or anything, I pray that you be healed. And with that, I'm going to let you go.